Meeting of May 21st. To order with a roll call, please.
Neil Mccarran, excuse me, Von Hartung,
Present.
Paul McKenzie, Bob Lucy not present, Ron Smith,
Here.
Lee Gibson,
Here.
Dale Ferguson,
Here.
and Rudy Malfabon just walked in. Thank you, we have a quorum.
Okay, and Mr. Lucy's here as well. So if we'll all...
Bob Lucy here for the record.
Okay, we'll all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Mr. McKenzie, would you lead us?
Join me in the pledge. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Okay, we have a recognition of the RTC and its commissioners by Adopt a Vet Dental Program. Jim, do you want to come down? And everybody come down if you want to. Welcome, Jim. Thank you.
I'm Linda Haig, Director and Founder of the Adopt a Vet Dental Program. Good afternoon, Chairman Smith and Commissioners. On behalf of the Adopt a Vet Dental Program and our low-income veterans, we would like to personally thank RTC, in particular, Commissioners Lucy and Jardin, for their generous donation of $11,000 in bus passes.
Hey.
These bus passes will make an incredible impact on helping our veterans get to their dental appointment, and I will let our dental manager, Heather, tell you why.
Hello, my name is Heather Borkowski. I'm the dental manager for Adopt a Vet Dental. The vast majority of our low-income veterans ride the bus to their dental appointments in the community and to our Adopt a Vet Dental Clinic that we have at TMCC, which is at their main campus on Dandini. Because each veteran case could take up to 4 to 8 months to complete, an average of 20 bus trips for dental appointments are necessary to complete their full restorations. This has caused an added hardship on our low-income veterans, and now because of your donation, we will be able to help them out with their transportation cost. We currently have 77 veterans in progress, and for the past 8 years, our 130 pro bono dentists and specialists have provided dental care to over 1,000 low-income veterans who could not afford to see a dentist or qualify for dental care at the VA. So I just want to thank you guys so much because you've definitely made an impact for our program.
Great.
Good afternoon. My name is Jim Snyder. I'm the veteran advocate for Adopt a Vet Dental. I'm kind of a little bit different. I just go with it. I want to personally thank you, Councilwoman and Commissioner, and Councilman McKenzie as well has been a big supporter of ours as well. And the veterans, I don't know if you notice, a majority of the veterans do take the bus. And especially going through our program, we deal with the low-income veterans and how important it has been taking that relief off of them. And I was reading you guys' bios today. I know most of you, but no one put veteran, that you support veteran causes. And I would hope that you guys would do that. I think that's a really important thing that you should put on your bios, that your support for veterans. It really helps and really lets the veterans know that you're there for them. And I gave each one a challenge coin, and Denise laid them out for you, and we appreciate it. But also we have some really nice certificates for Councilwoman Jordan and Commissioner Lucy, and if you
Want to get a picture? Would you like to get a picture with them down
Yeah,
front?
that would be great. Okay. And if everybody wants to, that's fine. If the whole,
Bring the whole group.
if everybody wants to come up, that's fine. But you got to promise your support in the future.
I think you have it. Which way are we going? Yeah, let's go down.
We're not going away. No.
Mr. Harton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Many of you may not realize that our chairman is one of the founding members of the Nevada Veterans Memorial, and it's a very, very big deal. And you don't see all the things that many of these members up here do, and it's very humbling to have the ability to serve with them. But I just recently gave a small amount to the Assistance League for veterans issues and some of the other things. But Madam Clerk, would you also add another 2,500 in bus passes for this cause from my allotment? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Thanks for coming down today. You guys do great work, and we'll be watching you. Okay, thank you. Okay, our next proclamation is National Public Works Week. Amy, you're going to read that, or is Mr. Gibson going to read it?
I can give it a try. I just have a cold, so I'm a little stuffed
have
up.
it with you?
I'll do it. I'll do it.
Let Amy read
All
it.
right, Amy, go for it.
Here's the proclamation. Whereas public works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, and services that are of vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities and to the public health, high quality of life, and well-being of the residents of Washoe County, Nevada. And whereas these infrastructure facilities and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of public works professionals who are engineers, managers, and employees from the Regional Transportation Commission of Washoe County, state and local governments in the private sector who are responsible for building, improving, and protecting our region's transportation, water supply, water treatment, solid waste systems, public buildings, and other structures and facilities essential for our residents. And whereas it is in the public interest for residents, civic leaders, and children in Washoe County, Nevada, to gain knowledge and to maintain progressive interest and understanding of the importance of public works and public works programs in their respective communities. And whereas the Regional Transportation Commission of Washoe County supports the American Public Works Association, Northern Branch of the Nevada chapter, from the membership and advocacy to grow their professionalism and directly impact the quality of life in the Truckee Meadows. Whereas the American Public Works Association has celebrated the annual National Public Works Week since 1960. Therefore, the Regional Transportation Commission of Washoe County hereby proclaims the week of May 20th to 26th, 2018 as National Public Works Week. And we urge our residents to join with the Board of Commissioners, representatives of the American Public Works Association, and government agencies to pay tribute to our public works professionals, engineers, managers, and employees to recognize the substantial contributions they make to protecting and enriching our community's safety, health, and quality of life.
Is there somebody here to accept the proclamation? Come on down, and it's I should have had you down there when she was reading the proclamation. So give us your name and say a few words if you would.
Hi there, Megan Seislip. I'm here to represent American Public Works Association. This year I'm on the board as a treasurer, and so they have asked me to come here today and to say a few words and show my appreciation and thank you all for your continued support and dedication to the community and everything that you do to support public works.
Thank you for what you do also. Thank you.
Thank you.
Here you go. Okay, we'll move on to the approve the agenda. We need to pull 3.2. Anybody want to pull another item? If not, looking for a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to pull item 3.6 for a quick discussion.
Okay, 3.2 and 3.6. Mr. Lucy?
Chairman.
My goodness, there we go. 1, 2, 3, we're working now. All right, Chairman, I would move to approve the agenda with the removal of 3.2 and pulling 3.6 for further discussion.
Okay, can I get a second? We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? See none, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Did you want to talk about 3.6 now while you pulled it? Or when we get there?
Let's wait till we get to
It's
item
consent, isn't it?
4.2. There's just some introductory remarks I want to make about
Okay.
item 3.6 before we talk about 4.2.
Okay, I'm going to open up the public comment period. Anybody in the audience wishing to speak, please fill out a card with Denise. And you have 3 minutes that you can talk. The first one I have is Kathy Brandhorst. Come on down, Kathy. Okay.
Sorry, I'm just slammed.
Welcome, Kathy.
Thank you. My name is Kathy Brandhorst, and I am the United States President. I just wanted to let you know the problem is not going away, I guess. And looks like there's a lot more people coming in from another city and another state, and I'm not sure where they're coming in from. Also, I have been assisting a little bit, but not a lot, because I don't know exactly who they are. And I just wanted to let you know on C Street is where I'm still at, but I don't live there. It belongs to the children, and the children have been contaminated. And they have been smelling, oh my, and they are dying because they wanted to go back home to where I live. But I just wanted to let you know that is crucial, and it's a very abusive towards the children themselves, since they do have that place. And I just wanted to explain too that they're still being evicted and going to C Street. After they're being evicted, they're all on death row. They have escaped from the Milpitas, California prison, and they came to our area, 92 of them. And I just wanted to let you know, these 92, we're down to about 40 now. And, but it's still, they're very crucial murderers you ever heard in your entire life. They are the worst, and they have really dirty mouths too. And I just wanted to tell you, you know, they are very, very crucial to find a place to live. And when they go to a place, they see a nice home and somebody lives there and they might even own it, they will kill them just to steal their home or their house. And I just wanted to tell you too, on C Street again, when they are evicted, they go to C Street, they wait for their organs because they already got their lethal injections. They are stealing houses because they were evicted someplace else, but in the city of Reno and Sparks. They still refuse to move off the streets, out of the house, because they have no place to go to pay nothing. They put up their poles and wires, and the poles and wires is what they live off in the neighborhood. They have been living off of my apartment and the children's apartment next to me.
Thank you, Kathy. I do have a public comment that was submitted by Joanne Echeverria. Are you in the audience? Okay, I'm just going to submit it as a public comment. Anybody else in the audience wishing to speak this time? Sure, come on down. You can finish filling out the card after you speak. You can, okay. Okay. And you want to wait till 4.1 on this one? Okay. Okay, seeing no other comments, I'll bring it back to the commission. Move on to 2.2. Accept the monthly summary report for the Technical Citizens, Multimodal and Regional Road Impact Fee Advisory Committees. Any questions or comments? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. We'll move on to consent items. We pulled 3.1 and 3.6. Anybody want to pull in for comments or?
3.2 and
What'd I say?
3.1.
Oh, I must have been wrong then, huh? 3.2 and 3.6, first time today.
First time ever.
Yeah. Of course, I didn't have any meetings this morning, so I'm good. Okay, looking for motion to accept the consent items.
Motion.
Okay, we have a motion. Was that you, Vaughn? Yes. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. Okay, we'll move on to public hearings, which is 4.1. And we do have some public comment on that, so why don't we do that first? Philip Cooney, come on down. Do you need assistance, sir? We've got somebody coming to help you right now. Welcome, Philip.
Thank you. Thank you, commission members. I appreciate your time. I wanted to speak in regard to a couple of things. One is the proposed changes in the types of bus passes that will be available. I still believe that the 24-hour pass is better than a calendar day pass because people can use it in different ways. And again, I would submit that I personally use the 10 rides most often. I know that you only sell very few of them, but, well, 800 or so, but that does provide me the flexibility that I need. And I wanted to make a comment. I know it's very difficult arranging a bus system so it works for everybody. And I know that there are budget constraints. At the same time, adding flexibility and adding more stops to a system or more routes to a system, I think would probably offset if you were able to raise the fare, maybe not substantially, but at least a little bit. Those two would probably offset. And I think adding flexibility to the fixed route system is probably the best way to increase ridership. You can't increase ridership by decreasing service. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We'll get some help.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, I think it's Dora Uchel. Did I say that correctly? And by the way, I believe your comments would be better suited to 4.2. You were just a little bit. No, that's okay. Welcome, Dora.
Oh, thank you. See, he doesn't want to. I'm sorry, I wanted just to say thank you for David Chickling and all his staff and all of you guys for hearing our favors to ask for the audible traffic lights where we live now. It really does help us across the street with my visually impaired boyfriend and my sighted dog. And the audible bus stop calls are really helpful for us, and we just want to be here and say thank you and for all that you guys done to help us be more independent. And since I'm riding the city bus more often, because I'm in Reno now, it's been in my experience when I go into the bus, my dog is certified service dog, but sometimes I'm in there and people come in and they tell the bus driver that that's a service animal that they have, and it's a rat or a cat or a chihuahua, and it runs in the bus aisle, and it can distract our dog that has to be, paying attention to me. So I hope that there is a way that we can be consistent with, ADA laws, and also make sure that the dogs that get on the bus are certified service dog. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Laura.
This is just a note to myself.
Okay. Okay, I have one more comment. Kathy Bradhurst, come on down, Kathy. And Kathy, I ask that you keep your comments to 4.1 or 4.2.
My name is Kathy Brandhorst, and I am the United States President. I wanted to let you know I am a bus rider. I ride the bus every day, and it's 7 days a week. And I just wanted to let you know, lots of people get on the bus, and they cannot afford to pay their fares at all when they get on the bus. They would rather threaten the bus driver with a gun, a knife, machete knife, or even threaten them with another weapon, like a hammer. Oh, my God. And I just wanted to tell you, I've been on the bus every day, and this is exactly what's taken place. Later on, they find the bus driver dead because he recognizes the person on the bus who didn't pay the fare. And that's exactly what's happening. There are fewer bus drivers because they're brand new. And guess what? They get to steal the bus drivers' payroll checks. And because they're brand new, they even had the training of the bus driver too, and they still have to kill them for their payroll checks. I just wanted to tell you too, the money that you mentioned here, $11,000 that you have really expected for the RTC to get. Well, they said they never received that money at all. So I just wanted to tell you, even decrease the disabled cash fare from $1 to 75 cents. It's not going to do any good because they still cannot afford to pay 50 cents either. They can't afford nothing. So they dump people out of the wheelchairs and throw them out on the sidewalk, throw them out on the street. Now they can deal with what do you call those, wheelchairs, excuse me. The wheelchairs, because now they can get on the bus for nothing. There's nothing wrong with them. But they're still going to threaten the bus driver, kill the bus driver, murder the bus driver, because he knows that there's nothing wrong with them at all. They don't even have a fever. They don't even have a broken leg. They don't even have nothing, not even a bruise on their ankle. So I just
Thank you,
wanted to
Kathy.
let you know, it's worse than ever.
Okay, is there anybody else in the audience who wishes to speak at this time? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the commission. 4.1, public hearing. Discussion and recommendation to approve the implementation of the RTC Rapid Lincoln Line and corresponding reduction of Route 11 service. And is this David? Oh, no.
This is Mark Maloney.
Mark?
Thank you, Mark Maloney, Transit
No, I've got it
Operations
right here,
Manager.
too.
We have a one-slide presentation.
Welcome, Mark.
Thank you. There it is. All right, so exciting news coming this fall is our all-electric BRT Lincoln Line along the soon-to-be-completed 3.1-mile complete streets project from 4th Street Station to Centennial Plaza. The new Lincoln Line will operate every 10 minutes, serving the new BRT stations, while the Route 11 currently serves the corridor will go from a 15-minute frequency to a 30-minute frequency, serving our local stops, really mimicking our Bus Rapid and Route 1 on Virginia Street. The other item we have is our system-wide weekday reliability and on-time performance will be improved by adjusting segment runtimes and end-of-line recovery. This will help us kind of stay on time, get things back. We hadn't made a change in quite some time. Therefore, the changing development economy has moved our congestion into different locations than we had normally had scheduled. So that should be a big help weekday, and then come spring or so, we'll shoot out and go after the weekend service to improve that. So that's actually all we have on this one. That ends my presentation. I'll gladly answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, questions or comments from Mark? Mr. McKenzie?
What was the comment we had on 3.6?
Mr. Chair, I want to take 3.6 before 4.2.
Okay. Any questions or comments from Mark? Okay, seeing none, looking for a motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
Now we'll move on to, you wanted to say something about 3.6?
3.6. Mr. Chair, item 3.6 is to approve changes to RTC Management Policy P12, Public Transportation Fares. I just wanted to have a quick overview of what we're doing to change our policy relative to fares, and then we'll move into a discussion about the fare policy changes we're proposing today. Mark, do you want to give us a quick overview of this policy change?
Yes, we have a little slide presentation on that, but the goals, as just pointed out, really is to increase our ridership, achieve some equity where we have some things that don't quite line up the way we think it should be, simplify the fare system, remove driver-passenger conflicts, and speed up our fare payment and reduce dwell times. We have a slide here of a few items that we think can achieve those. The first one is our reducing the 7-day pass price. Currently, our 31-day pass price is our most discounted piece, but people who can't afford to pay upfront the full 31 days go to the 7-day pass and end up paying more for it. And these are our most needy people.
Mr. Chair, if I may, Mark, you're going through item 4.2. I wanted to do a quick overview of item 3.6, which is the underlying management policy that sets the stage with respect to then adopting.
Right, and some of these, and we can kind of hit the highlights of that. The certain pieces of these are policy-driven, which is the senior fare eligibility from 65 to 60. So that's a policy item that we have in that P12. And then our other policy item is the changing of the veterans to a reduced fare category. Those are our two significant things that this 4.2 item, if you so choose to approve, are reflective in that P12 policy agreement. So really, one's tied with the other one.
Okay, so let's move on to 4.2 now, and I don't have any cards for public hearing, but if they come up, then I'll do it after your presentation now.
Please do.
Okay?
Mr. Chair, we do need a motion on item 3.6.
Okay, is that what you wanted to do?
Yeah, that's advice from the council.
Okay.
Didn't we vote on it?
Normally what happens on a consent item, if you pull it, you pull it and we deal on it during the consent item, period. I thought he wanted to pull it off the agenda altogether.
We need a clarification. You do not want to pull it off.
I'm sorry if I didn't make myself clear. I just wanted to have a quick discussion of what our underlying policy was We are, as Mark correctly pointed out, we are changing the definition of a senior. We're changing the definition of a veteran. And what else are we doing, Mark?
We have the executive director's ability to set
Okay,
emergency
just in the
fare
future, we
policy
need a
days and-
clarification. When you pull a consent item, you pull it for a reason, and we'll discuss it before we move on. Mr. Lucy.
Mr. Chair, I think my motion was that we were going to take 3.6 for further discussion, not to actually remove it from the agenda was my motion.
You said your motion?
Yeah, and so 3.2 we moved from the agenda, but 3.6 we just pulled for
Okay,
further
my
discussion.
apologies then.
So that's how the motion was read, and
Okay.
that's how it was voted on,
Okay.
from my recollection. So it is still available. So it was my understanding, since we discussed it, that we probably voted on it within the consent agenda, but that would be up to legal for those.
Yeah, I would prefer that we did a separate motion and approval for 3.6.
Okay. 3.6, looking for a motion.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, passes unanimously. Now we'll move on to 4.2, and I apologize for that.
No, I think it's a little hard, a little piece, horse before the cart kind of issue here. So I think that's great to have that figured out. And like I mentioned, the 7-day pass, we're asking it to be reduced to match up to the 31 days. So it's a fair, if someone can pay for just 7 days, they're paying the same price as the 31 day. The 24-hour pass is a way we can try to increase ridership as well as reduce conflicts and some difficulties with the transfer. So within this whole piece, we have it going from a 24-hour pass to a day pass. So it's still 24 hours, but it's of a calendar day. We're going to propose to eliminate transfers, and that is done because right now someone can get on the bus, ride the bus, and they get a transfer, which obviously takes time. The fare box has to produce it. They have to ask the driver, and then that many times people will go from point A to point B and then try to do their shopping real fast or go to this pharmacy and then try to come back as a round trip, which was what it was intended for. So the idea is to reduce the fare down to a $3 day pass, which makes it very inexpensive for someone to use. They can use it as many times they want. They can take their time at the store. It's not rushed. They can go later in the night. So we think that one will be a good increased ridership piece of that for the dollars that we are going to invest into that. The other is the 31-day disabled pass. Currently, I think it was 2002, the disabled pass got reduced separately from the rest of the reduced pass. So it went down to 26 from 32.50. We're proposing to put it back up so that everything matches up. We don't have a pass that's hanging out there differently. So if you're disabled, if you're senior, or if you're a youth, you'd pay the same for that, as well as a proposed 7-day pass. We'd reduce that down to $6 for all three categories as well. The senior fare, we talked about reverting that back to 60 from the 65. The access ID and disabled cash fares, right now the access ID is 50 cents and the reduced fare for the disabled is $1. We're proposing to make it 75 cents. The concept behind the 50 cents was a great concept, is try to encourage our ADA ID bearing riders to use the service more often. Unfortunately, it drove many of our folks that had a disability but not able to use paratransit to the eligibility center, and we had to travel them there. We had to try to evaluate them, send out the letter, have them travel back. It became very expensive and it impacted our side on that. So we feel we can reduce the amount for the disabled to 75 cents, move up the ID to 75 cents, and then that will keep the folks happy. We should increase the ridership from our disabled because of the better fare on that one, and reduce our impact on our eligibility center. The other is our veterans fare reduction, which was a commission request. In this one, we took a look at 2013. We had a survey of 23% of our RTC rider passengers reported were being veterans. We took a look at that, and if we were to implement free for all active duty and previous men and women, we come up about a $1.2 million annual, which would be quite pricey and would cause us probably some significant reduction in trips. So we looked at it, can we add it into the reduced fare? And if we do that, add it as the senior, disabled, youth, and veterans on that reduced fare, it can increase ridership by about 164,000 and we'll lose about $295,000 investment into that one. If we go to the next slide, but before we do, on the little bullet points before, we had gone to our public hearings. We did about 13 public outreaches for media. We had roughly over 250 people come and talk to us, and you can kind of see that the impacts we had and how many negative responses we received. So pretty much across the board, the fare reduction and changes that we put out there were very, very popular. And then this is the breakdown of the actual cost and the ridership gains. As you can see on the first set, which is everything but the veterans reduced fare, for about $350,000, we will receive back close to $600,000 in ridership increases annually. And then the reduced veteran, which I mentioned, will be the $295 for the $163,967 to be exact on the ridership projection. So the board report packages it all together in one, but if anyone has discussions, questions, want to do something differently, we can pull them out separately. So that ends my presentation.
Okay, Mr. Hartung. Oh, okay.
Got lucky.
Questions or comments? Ms. Jordan?
Thank you very much. It's hard to tell when these speakers are on. My question is this, and I know I've asked it to Director Gibson, and I think something was being worked out. Is there bus pass packets for access riders? And here, let me preface this a little bit. So clearly, as presented here today, we gave $11,000 plus $13,500 in bus passes for our veterans. Do we have the capacity to transfer those, or as RTC commissioners to purchase booklets for access riders?
I believe if someone looked in that, and that was true, you could do that. I don't know if you had.
You could or could not?
You could.
I believe you could.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Yeah,
But is there actual bus, do they get an actual bus pass? How does that?
No, they're tickets. Or if they want to go to Token Transit, we can send it to them electronically using email for their actual electronic pass. But otherwise, they actually are tickets.
So we can request those as RTC commissioners, just like we can for seniors or homeless or whatever, and
yeah,
it comes
just
out
like
of
we
our-
can for fixed route. And I'm sorry, this is my cold speaking. Didn't I leave you some of those?
No, you didn't. I think you did
Okay.
something, but I never
Okay.
I never got the loop back on what it looked like or how it. Oh, it's in.
Oh, well. See how quick we are?
Ask Coach Howard.
Thank you, Denise.
Thank you. It's in an envelope. Okay, thank you.
Having a better day. Yeah.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we are looking for a motion. Okay, we have a motion from Mr. Hartung. We have a second, and a second from Mr. McKenzie. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
You know what, I don't have any cards for public comment, so I should have probably asked for it. Is there any public comment on this? I can't hear you, sir. Well, maybe I did. I apologize.
Mr. Chairman, I will rescind my motion.
Okay, thank you. Okay, when you get done, when you fill out a card, sir?
My name is Ryan McKinney.
Wait till you get up to the microphone, please.
Sure. My name is Ryan McKinney, and I just had a couple questions. One is, what happens if you're a person that has an access pass, like me, you use the bus, and you paid it, like, what's the fare for an all day? Because there was no talk about that at all, I heard in the presentation. Would that roll into the all-day pass for the $2, or the transfer, or how would that work for people that, like that?
We'll have Mark answer that question.
It's $1.50 is the proposal. So
Okay.
it's reduced down to $1.50.
Okay.
Is there any other
Is
questions?
that $1.50 all day then?
That's all day.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Did that answer the
One
question?
more quick. The calendar, I think it should be 24 hours, because if it's a calendar day, let's say you get a pass, let's say you get on the bus at 7 a.m., and it used to be, okay, I got on the bus at 7 a.m., and I would have to 7 a.m. the next day to use that, but now you lose those hours, you go to a calendar day.
Well, sorry. On a calendar day, so basically if you got it at 7 a.m., that's all the way good through the evening. So it's up till midnight. So of that Tuesday, you'll still have the full day into the evening. And then if you happen to be one that, starts early in the morning, say at 2 o'clock, that'll still be good through the next calendar day. People who are using 24-hour might have to shift by one pass to start kind of the rhythm, but at that point, they get onto the calendar day.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Would you be sure and fill out a card for me, sir? You can get them from Denise. Is there any further public comment? Anybody else in the audience wants to speak at this time? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the commission. And would you restate your motion, Mr. Hartung?
So moved, Mr. Chairman, as stated in the staff report.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I got just one question. One of the public commenters mentioned the animals that are on the bus that aren't truly service animals. What's our obligation under
Mark?
Foot Transit on transporting people's
Mark
animals?
Maloney, Trans Operation Manager again. Very good question. The obligation under the ADA states that you have to carry any service animal, except on transit, you don't have to have a comfort animal. It has to be a service animal, so it has to provide a service. And there's two questions that can be asked by a driver to a customer, which is that a service animal and what service does it provide? Beyond that, if they answer those two questions, it's a service animal,
But
and we let them ride.
if the animal's misbehaving like any other place, even if they are a service animal, if they're misbehaving, then,
They're asked to leave.
right,
Yes.
okay. So can we make sure our bus drivers are aware of that and keep an eye on that? Because people that have true service animals, you hear more complaints from them about people that have animals that don't act correctly than you do anybody else, because they take care of their animals and their animals take care of them. And we just allow other animals to distract those dogs from or animals from their responsibility.
Yes, we'll take that with our drivers.
Mr. Hartung?
No, so I'm just for clarification, in terms of service animal, I have a dog that's listed as a service animal. She's a scent detection dog. So that's listed as well. I could take her on our transit system.
It'd be a little tough on basically what service does it provide for you? So you'd have to, basically say that scent animal helps me on my other end to finish my, my job or
It's actually,
whatever.
yeah, right.
So that would be
Okay,
a service
so,
animal.
okay, so if they do have an animal that is used for a job,
Yeah,
that can
it could be used on the
actually-
bus or their job or their
Interesting.
shopping or
Okay.
whatever it takes on the other end and come back.
Interesting, okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Dale?
Commissioner Hartung, I just want to clarify your motion. You are
Yes, sir.
moving to approve all of the fare and service adjustments that are listed in the agenda item.
As listed in item 4.2, and as I said, as listed in the staff report.
Thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. Thank you. 4.3, public hearing no later than 1:40. Discussion and recommendation to approve the FY 2019 RTC final budget. Stephanie, after your presentation, we'll do public comment.
There it is. All right, good afternoon, Commissioners. This is Stephanie Haddock, Finance Director, for the record. So we started our budget process in February with our Directors Retreat, and from there, we put together our tentative budget, which we sent to the Department of Taxation on April 13th. A tentative budget was also presented to the advisory committees on May 2nd. They all approved the budget with no comments. So today I will be presenting the final budget, and I will take any recommendation for changes and submit the budget to the Department of Taxation on June 1st. So overall, the fiscal year 19 total revenues will be $206 million. Most of that money, our largest revenues are from our fuel tax at $86 million and 42% of our budget. We have federal funding in the form of $57 million or 28% of our budget. And then our sales tax at $30 million or almost 15% of our budget. We also get some miscellaneous revenues, including our passenger fares, which were budgeted at $6 million this year. We're going to get about $2 million in state funds, which is Medicaid, Medicare reimbursements for qualified rides on our access system. And then we get some money for our employer trip reduction program. And then we also have some transportation alternative grant money that we'll be using for bus stop solar lights and benches this year. Our investment income at $1.6 million is actually going to be about 78% increase over our current year, and that's all due to the increase in our short-term interest rates that hopefully everyone else is seeing in their savings as well. Miscellaneous revenue of about $1.8 million. That's mostly project reimbursements that we do with NV Energy or Tumwa when we're doing our road projects. So on the expenditure side, you have a $215 million budget. Most of the wedges of that pie make up $108 million for our road projects, which comprises 50% of our expenditure budget. We have $41 million, or 19% of our budget, going towards ride operating and access costs. And then $27 million is 13% of our budget for our debt service, and $19 million, or 9% of our budget, for our capital. At the end of the year, we should have about $119 million in ending fund balance. Most of that will be reserved, $45 million for debt service. Then we have $37 million and almost $50 million, $54 million reserved for road projects to carry forward into the next construction year. And then our operating and capital reserves of $19 million for the public transportation program. So RTC's budget is comprised of 3 major programs. First of which I'll talk about is the street and highway program. It'll start our year off with $104 million in beginning fund balance that we're carrying forward from this fiscal year, all of that towards road projects again. We're going to have $147 million in projected revenues, $87 million of fuel tax. That's a 7% budgeted increase over this fiscal year. That will account for about $5.6 million in additional fuel tax revenue, all due to our indexing. The indexing is at 1.97% this year. That's down from last year. Last year was 2.15%. It will equate to I say that every time, 1.68 cents increase in actual gas tax at the pump starting July 1st. Also, gallons are up. We budgeted a 3% increase for fiscal year 19. Actual gallons is running around 4% increase. We have federal funding of $32 million. That's in the form of FTA, FHWA, and CMAQ grants, congestion mitigation air quality grants that we're using for our road projects. We have some for 4th and Prater, and then we're anticipating, it's budgeted, we haven't received those grant funds yet, for Virginia Street, the Small Starts grant that we applied for. On the sales tax, we have $5 million. That represents the 1/16th cents, 1/16% of the 1/8 the increase in sales tax that we receive, and we continue to split that. Half goes to the street and highway program and half to the public transportation program. And then for impact fee cash, we're only budgeting about $5 million, and that's, again, because we still have a lot of outstanding RIF credits or waivers out there in the community, and they're being used for development projects. So on the expenditure side, we have $151 million, $26 million of it in our congestion and capacity improvement projects. The Southeast Connector is a little bit budgeted still in fiscal year 19 as we complete that this year. We have North Valley's improvements, and then a lot of traffic signal in that category. Mobility at $60 million, that includes the 4th and Prater project, which should be completed in fiscal year 19. We will be starting the Virginia Street project in fiscal year 19. And then we have a lot of PED improvements going on, Evans Avenue, Victorian, Mill Street, and then a Truckee River use path. Then there is $15 million in annual pavement preservation. This is the first fiscal year that we've actually been able to fully fund that pavement preservation program. You have a full listing of all the road projects on page 15 of your budget packet. And then at the retreat, Brian had handed out the total pavement preservation program. I didn't put that in the budget package, but if you need another copy of all the roads that'll be in that $15 million, I'm happy to provide that. Debt service, we continue debt service on our $435 million, which is actually down to $398 million now, and that annual debt service is $27.5 million a year. So going forward into our 2020 budget, we should carry forward about $54 million. Again, that's net of our debt service reserve to continue the active projects that will start in this year into the next year, next fiscal year. So on the public transportation program, we have $57 million in total revenue, $25 million in sales tax. That's a budgeted 4% increase over last year. That's down a little bit only because we're still awaiting news from the Department of Taxation on the $27.5 million AT&T tax refund. They still haven't told us how or when they're going to distribute that. And so I'm still waiting. So I reduced our sales tax revenue in this budget until I hear exactly how we're going to be impacted by that. We have federal funding of $22 million that we put towards capital. That's all FTA money. And then the passenger fares, as you just heard in Mark's presentation, at that $6 million is basically a 0.6 increase over the current year. That's because we figured that the reduction in fares that we're going to be taking in revenue, we should offset by the increase in passengers riding the bus. So we hope to see that as a revenue neutral change. So I'm not increasing passenger fares, but I'm not significantly decreasing them either. State funding of the $2 million, as I mentioned, is for ATR, Medicaid, and our Transportation Alternatives Grant. So on this program, we have $58 million in total expenditures, $31 million in operating costs for a ride. That includes a 2.2% increase in our contract that, for MV that provides the service. Also includes increased costs for the introduction of our new BRT Lincoln Line service that'll start this year on 4th and Prater, and then the demonstration of a microtransit service. On the access side, we have $10 million in operating costs. That includes a 2% increase in ride contract that provides that service. And then we have an 8% increase anticipation in actual demand for that service, so increased costs there. And the microtransit will also be done on the access side too, so we have an increase in the budget for that. And then on the capital side, we have $17 million. We're going to be buying $11 million, and that equates to 11 new buses, all electric buses. And then we have some facility improvements to the Villanova and Terminal Way facility in amount of about $1.5 million, and then $1.3 million in bus shelters and stops and ADA improvements to all of our stops. So that'll be a significant improvement in our capital program on that side. And then on the access side, we're going to be buying 13 new paratransit vans, cost about $2 million, and then doing some CNG. All those vans are fueled by compressed natural gas, and we need to do some improvements to the fueling facility there, so about $8.8 million for that. And there is a full list of all the capital budget on page 13 of your packet. So our final third program for RTC is our Metropolitan Planning Organization, which we refer to as our MPO. The total expenditures for this program are $3.6 million. We get $2.9 million in federal planning money to help fund that. $75,000 will be spent on TMRPA shared services this year. And we have $1.4 million in proposed planning studies, as they're listed there, the ADA transition update, the affordable housing study. Both of those are in progress right now. The South Meadows Regional Transportation Study is upcoming, the UNR Area Transportation Study upcoming, and the Eagle Canyon Improvements Extension Study are all upcoming. Also new to this budget, or the fiscal year, is a safety messaging campaign, a significant investment in that. We've also submitted to the Office of Traffic Safety for a grant to help fund the cost of that. We still are waiting to hear if we're going to receive that, but we're budgeted about $600,000 in an actual campaign for pedestrian, bicycle messaging. Also part of your packet, on page 3 of your actual agenda item, was the 2019 agency goals. I don't expect you to read them. Hopefully you have them. You should have a copy of them. It's on page 3 of your agenda item. I don't know if you have any discussions or modifications or adds to these goals, but you can let us know at this time so we can, because those are adopted during this process.
Ms. Jordan?
Thank you very much. I just had one comment and one question. First off, thank you very much for everybody advocating for the 1.5 million for the improvement in the bus stops. People hopefully won't have to stand in the mud and in the weather, and we can get those fixed. Appreciate that very much. So we went through the process of reducing fares. We're hoping to spur additional ridership, particularly with a couple of different segments. I noticed student fares being reduced. Did I read that correctly?
Mm-hmm.
For TMCC and that sort of area. What sort of marketing are we doing to advertise for that group of people for them to ride the bus?
Well, I was looking to Amy or Michael. I'm not quite sure what they have planned for that.
Thank you. We are working on an RFP that you'll be seeing in the next couple of months to bring on some consultant support for us to target that marketing campaign. So you'll be seeing that in the near future.
So is that, there's no additional budget dollars allocated for that, or are there?
That should be part of that's part of the $600,000.
Okay, because it says it's for the safety campaign, and they're two different things. So that's what okay, so it's all lumped into the one. Got it. Thank you.
Mr. Hartung?
And that's my fault. I should have put that on my slide.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I wanted to thank staff for adding in the Eagle Canyon study, and I'm hopeful that in the future, when the Washoe County School District asks to put two major schools on the same route, that we look at that very carefully, because what ends up happening is we become responsible later on, and it's a long, drawn-out fix. And so I think that there's a real lesson here just in terms of our recommendations. So again, I want to thank staff for looking at that. And when you guys are ready to do the study, I'm buying donuts and coffee, and we'll go sit out there and watch traffic. So you guys just let me know. It'll surprise you. Thank you.
Stephanie, I have a question.
Sure.
What is RTCO for the AT&T refund? Do we know?
Our
Our share?
portion, we calculate it at $1.3 million. It'll be a reduction in our sales tax when they actually do distribute it. That's an estimate. We haven't gotten the final numbers from the Department of Taxation yet.
So our share is higher than the city of Sparks?
Yeah.
Okay. We've got our information in, so it should be available to you as well. You mentioned renovating Villanova and Sutro. What are we doing in Villanova? Does it have to be done right away? Because we may
Yes.
not even have that facility.
Yes, we have to improve the bus wash. Because of the size of our new buses, we have to put in a new bus wash, and that bus wash is over 20 years old. So
Okay.
that is the only improvement that we're doing over there.
So that can be moved?
It could be. I could just, I look to my executive director on that and our facilities.
Rudy's going to buy us a new bus wash, that's what I heard.
What?
Rudy's going to buy us a brand new maintenance facility.
I just know we're talking about the different options, and one of the options is it goes away.
Well, from what I understand, in discussions with NDOT, and Rudy can weigh in on this, we're probably 10 years out from actually losing our facility at Villanova for
Okay.
the improvements that will be done. So we will get our money's worth out of that. And yes, they
Okay.
will have to buy us a new facility when the time comes.
Brand spanking new facility.
Isn't that wonderful?
Mr. Chair, I will make one serious comment. 10 years is not that long. And I think,
It is when you get to be my age. It's
yeah, well, my age too. But it's an interesting conundrum because it's going to be an FHWA to FTA sort of sorting out of all these grant agreements. So, but it's going to be a brand new facility.
Stephanie, do you have some more?
I just have one last slide, and then we can be done. I just wanted to get the financial assessment. So we have a balanced budget. We're in good financial condition for our fiscal year 19 budget. I just want to highlight that we have a really good stable economy for RTC to operate in. I want to highlight again, we have 7 years of sales tax growth, 10 years of fuel tax growth. The Washoe County area has low unemployment at 4.2%. National is, US is 4.1. And we have job growth at 3.2%. The national job growth is at 1.6%. So we're outpacing the national job growth in this area. And the Nevada personal income has increased 30 of the 31 past quarters at 6.4%. So, you know, we feel comfortable in all the presentations you've heard this morning, and that we're going to put some more money into our public transportation service and provide some additional service. I think we're in a time that we can do that. All of our reserves have been restored as far as the sales tax reserves, so we feel comfortable in doing this. I thank you for approving that. I know the public will as well. We're proud to say we're a lean organization. We're maintaining at 67 RTC employees. Our labor and fringe budget only makes up 5% of our entire budget, and we are creating jobs. 95% of our revenues are going back out, and the form of private investment and hiring of these consultants and construction firms that do all the work for us. So that is all I had. Now I can answer any additional questions you might have.
Mr. Hartung.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I didn't notice, are we working with NDOT to do a study on the I-80 corridor going east out to the Tri-Center? Is that part of our assistance? Maybe.
Right after the spaghetti.
Hey.
Amy, you can answer that.
Thanks, Amy Cummings, RTC Planning. We are partnering with NDOT, so we're participating as one of their technical team
Okay.
members, but we're not funding that
Okay,
study.
yeah, because I didn't see it anywhere, so but I'm hoping that we're at least looking at that and hopeful that we will get regional partner assistance. I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, this is a public hearing, so I'll open up the public. Anybody wishing to speak at this time? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the commission.
Can I make a comment, Mr. Chairman?
You can.
Thank you. I noticed we've got $5 million in this Pyramid 395 connector again this year. That gas tax money, what's the money we're using on that?
It's going to be federal funding. We have state transportation, what is that, STBG,
STBG, and I believe some leftover earmark money.
and yes, that'll be going, because that is a federal project.
Amy, you want to? Amy Cummings has more, the most accurate information.
If I could add to that, that phase of the project is not for the connector itself, it's phase one, which is widening Pyramid Highway north of Queen Way. So it's the design and early work on that.
So we just completed a major traffic improvement on Pyramid and Mccarran. And we're not gonna wait until we figure out what the traffic's gonna do. We're just gonna dump some more money into that area. At the same time, we're talking about, we wanna wait until we see how the southeast connector works before we do a study in the south. It would seem that we would wait until all that's done before we spend $5 million so we could use someplace that we know we've got a problem that we need to address right away. And
Well, this is for the design phase. I don't know that that includes, I would have to check with,
what do we know, we don't even know what we need to design to because we don't know what our traffic's gonna look like once the southeast connector opens up.
Is this widening for the 395 connector?
For the Pyramid connector.
it's widening Pyramid Highway.
This is to widen Pyramid
It's north of
for
the, it's
the,
north of the intersection.
for the 395 connector. Is that what we're doing? Through Sun Valley?
It's not the Sun Valley portion of it.
Right, I know
but it's
that.
that next phase up. As I know one of the comments that we've heard is that have just pushed the traffic congestion farther north on Pyramid Highway.
Mhm.
So this is addressing some of those concerns.
This is,
Knowing that there is more congestion on Pyramid Highway itself, and ultimately the Pyramid Highway, or Pyramid 395 connector does widen, and I don't have the project details in front of me, we can bring this back as a future item.
That's what I'm asking. That's what it's for when we eventually do the 395 connector.
Correct.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I'm not mistaken, these are design improvements north of Disk Drive.
Not north of Disk, north of Queen. Two Disk.
North of
I would
Queen,
say
two
two
Disk.
Disk, right?
Okay.
Queen to Disk. Yeah.
And again, we don't know what, impact the Southeast Connector is going to have on that, if that's actually going to be a priority once the Southeast Connector opens.
No impact.
Mr. Chairman, if I might suggest, if we dwell into history, perhaps we can bring an agenda item back. A long time ago, we went through an exercise where we modeled the Pyramid 395 connector, the Southeast connector, and the Pyramid Mccarran intersection to kind of show the relationship amongst those three. With two of those three projects, well, one of those projects, I don't want to give away the item here and a couple, 3 items away, but basically with 2 of those items complete, maybe it's time we brought back that whole forecasting exercise to discuss and show and compare kind of what we've done and what's still left to be done and try to fit all those pieces together. Because I know when we did that study years ago, there was actually some surprising results as it related to especially the connection between Southeast Connector and the Pyramid Mccarran intersection. But it might be worthwhile to kind of go back and look at that, because I know that was if you'll recall, Mr. Chairman, and both you and I were here, that really drove a lot of the decisions with respect to the projects this commission then subsequently funded, and we have opened and are about to open today. So, Amy, maybe we'll bring that back next month.
Okay, Mr. Hartung?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I'm actually hopeful that we will look at Pyramid Highway sooner rather than later, for the simple reason that the city of Sparks now is starting to grow again. Washoe County is starting to grow again. Pyramid Highway is it's getting to be congested, and so I'm hoping that we start looking at that, bringing back those studies, and dealing with how we're going to look at the Pyramid Highway in a long-term view, whether it's going to be a freeway that goes out there or how it's just basically how it's going to occur. As you know, Mr. Chairman, they're improving La Posada right now, and there'll be quite a number of houses there. There'll be houses even north to that are approved many years ago and yet to be built. And so as all that stuff starts to come online, Pyramid Highway will be affected dramatically, and improvements will need to happen virtually all the way out to the end of the valley past Calle de la Plata. I mean, and as you may recall, once you get past Egyptian, Pyramid's just a 2-lane highway,
Right,
and there's a ton that's been improved out there. So, I mean, we've got a lot of issues, and Mr. McKenzie's comments are well taken. But the Southeast Connector will have no bearing on what's going on in the north. It'll have no bearing whatsoever. So we won't see any benefit from that. We will have to do it sooner rather than later. Thank you, sir.
And, it's from the estimates I've seen, there's going to be 120,000 people living out in that valley one of these days. Ms. Jordan?
Thank you very much. When we have those traffic, when we have that information that comes back to us, can we also have that in conjunction with the actual traffic out to the Tri-Center? Thank you.
What's your question? I'm sorry.
It was more of I guess it was a question. When we have that information come back to us about the connector, the pyramid, the upper,
395 connector.
what, is that what we're?
Yeah.
Can we also get data on the traffic volume from our area out to the Tri-Center? Because I know there is some information that doesn't support what the actual traffic to and from there is. As we're looking at the global spend, where we're allocating, what we're prioritizing, I think we need to look at it, particularly with the Southeast Connector coming online, what the actual traffic volume is going out to the Tri-Center. At the same time, we look at the other traffic.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, yeah, we'll do that. We can bring that back. It's, with, again, I don't want to get ahead of our agenda items, but with the opening of the Southeast Connector coming here soon, in July, I think it's a good time for this commission to step back and take a look at all of these analyses. I'm looking at Dr. Schwinn, our forecasting expert. So we'll start working through that, because it's a good time for us to step back and take a look at these things. My guess, and I'll just put it out there, we're not going to see a change in our relative priorities. We will see Spaghetti Bowl, we will see the Northwest Valleys, 395, stay as top priorities. We're going to see, although emerging, new challenges, and we, of course, will be looking forward to working with Rudy and our congressional delegation to help continue to leverage and pursue and leverage additional funds so we can build all this stuff.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. We've had public comment. Is there any further discussion or comments? Looking for a motion to accept the budget or approve the budget.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I'm not gonna vote for the approval of the budget. I believe that this $5 million for this section of the Pyramid 395 connector, continuing to draw down highway funds, to Mr. Vaughn's point, the north part of the pyramid needs help, and we're putting money down on an area that we may not need that help in the near future. So, I mean, I think prioritizing the areas that we need help right now, that we know we're not gonna have changes based upon projects we have in the works right now, should be where we're prioritizing spending money, not putting more money on someplace that we may not even need those expansions. My guess is that the Sparks Boulevard is gonna become a high priority when the Southeast Connector opens, and this money would be better spent addressing that issue than the one we're looking at.
Thank you. Mr. Hartung.
Question for staff. Is there a way to set that aside or make changes at this point? And that's either directed at you, Ms. Haddock, or Mr. Gibson, or?
Mr. Chairman, I would suggest perhaps, and I'm just throwing this out there as an idea, just because it's in the budget doesn't necessarily we spend the money.
Right.
And certainly a change in our transportation improvement program could change those priorities, and those monies would end up not being spent and/or re-scoped and maybe spent at a less level, and then we work through those priority
Yes,
issues.
that's absolutely correct. Even though it's in the budget, doesn't mean we have to spend it. We can put a hold on it until, it's been decided that that's the appropriate
Can
way
we-
to spend those funds.
Ms. Jordan.
Can we make a caveat to that this board would vote on it before it gets spent? Can we put an asterisk on that item?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mr. Chairman, as you're well aware, all items related to implementation, RFPs, et cetera, come before this board. So you would have to see the actual action items that would lead us to spend that money anyway.
How much
And
is
it's my understanding we could change, we just submit the budget and then we can change it afterwards. It really doesn't
Yes.
mean anything that we're.
How much was the Villanova improvements?
1 point something for both of them, 1.5.
You see where I was trying to
Yes.
get there? Didn't quite cover it.
No.
Okay, so do we need to amend the motion, Mr. Ferguson, to include that?
I don't, I'm not a,
To put an asterisk on it and
Yeah, I
make
don't-
sure that it comes back?
I think we're agendized to approve the fiscal year
The budget as a
2019
whole?
budget. Yeah.
And not line,
then-
we're not looking at line items in
Exactly,
particular?
exactly.
Okay.
Lee is correct. Mr. Gibson is correct. We will not be able to spend that money. It will have to come before this board for approval on any expenditure that goes towards that project.
Sorry.
Ms. Jordan?
This is the biggest thing to me that this board will do, is our budget, obviously, every year. And I'm kind of with Mr. McKenzie on this one. If it has to come back to this board and we don't think we're going to roll that money out in the next fiscal year, why don't we spend that money on something else in the next fiscal year while the Southeast Connector, while some other things, while these studies come back to us and shake out? I don't know. I'm a little sensitive about approving that in there and then saying, that's $5 million. That's a big chunk of cash that we could be using on something else. Increase the local pavement preservation budgets, and increase the safety campaigns, increase even more stuff at bus stops. Some of the access ride stuff we've had to, I know that's a different pool of money, but curtail.
You gotta go.
I don't know. I'm kind of.
So I will attempt to, Mr. Chair, I will attempt to comment. I believe these are federal funds that have been programmed through FHWA and the Nevada DOT as they relate to our highway programs. And that's a fancy way of saying basically these funds have to be obligated and spent on highways, regional highways. And since Pyramid Highway, last I checked, is an NDOT road, NDOT facility, it kind of falls within that little bucket of funds. So we can't literally take some of those funds and move them over and say buy buses necessarily.
Okay, then I have a proposal. Could we use those monies for interim improvements surrounding the spaghetti bowl that we've not put in place? Which we didn't do, and we just saw a 7-car massive pileup. We haven't seen a speed reduction. We haven't seen on-ramp closures. We've seen no interim safety improvements. I know the fixes are coming, and I'm very appreciative of that. But all of the interim stuff to help improve the rest of it while the bigger fix comes, somehow mysteriously has come off the table. $5 million could put some variable speed limit signs in and maybe prevent what happened 2 Fridays ago.
These funds could also be spent on Virginia Street too, I mean allocated towards that, because
Yeah, we could move that money to
our
Virginia
federal
Street.
funding in total for that. That's another use.
Do we have to
suggestion.
identify here today?
No, actually, if we were to, and that's a good question, Commissioner Jordan, and I'm going to kind of look at Amy for an answer. I believe if we were to try to repurpose that $5+ million from the Pyramid Highway improvement design to, say, Virginia Street or to Spaghetti Bowl, we would have to come back with a tip amendment. Either, and would it be an administrative mod or just a regular tip? I'd have to research that. So there just be a short answer. We'd have to step 2 steps back and just take a look at our tip and perhaps reprioritize there. And then basically that's a governing document over the budget. So if that amendment were made, then we would just come back and spend that money in the budget because that money, having been authorized in the action for the budget today, its purpose could then be redirected to the tip. I guess what I'm trying to say.
Mr. Hartung?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'm not disagreeing with either one of my colleagues, but I would like to see the money stay, that has something to do with Pyramid Highway, and I would like to see a third lane from Queen, where it merges over all the way to Disk. We're going to see huge amounts of traffic in that area in the not-too-distant future with all the improvements that are going on, and at least taking it to Disk, preferably to La Posada. That would alleviate so much traffic. It's not even funny, but I don't think $5 million is going to get it. It's still a lot, but I'd like to see that money stay in Spanish Springs. It's been allotted for Spanish Springs, it's been allotted for Pyramid Highway, and I know that there are needs, but you know, we're all vying for interests in the region, and that's, if we've set it aside for that particular area, I can see that as
Okay,
happening.
to try to cut to the chase on this thing, it's in the budget. It's a line on the budget. We can change it at any time.
Yes.
Just because we're approving it today, there's still $5 million.
Right, there's $5 million, does not have to be spent on the project it's been designated for.
Right.
We can bring it back and have more discussion, and Amy will bring a tip amendment. It would have to be a tip amendment, because we'll have to decide where we put that money. It will actually involve a regional transportation plan.
And we can do the needed
amendment
research to find out if we can actually move that money.
Yeah,
because it's
and we'll
federal
give you
funding,
all the
so-
options that you have. That
Okay.
way, you guys have a fully informed decision.
Okay, we're going to lose Mr. Lucy here in a second, so.
Okay.
Any other comments?
Yeah.
Any other comments, questions? Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
Okay, so it passes 3-2.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Okay, we'll move on to Director's Report 5.1.
Mr. Chairman, I see Thor Dyson in the audience today, and I'm going to pick on Thor a little bit. I recently was in Las Vegas at a Nevada DOT meeting. I'll pick on Rudy a little bit too, but we listened to a fascinating discussion about transportation planning and homelessness issue. And this was from it was a University of Nevada, Las Vegas social welfare professor who has studied the relationship and the issues and how we, RTC, Nevada DOT, can work with the social welfare and social service functions. We are going to be a part of the BID, and I think it would be well worth our time to perhaps invite this professor to come up and talk about just some of those strategies. They were fascinating, they were touching, and they were very human service oriented and brought a degree of humanity to what I think are some of the issues we dealt with. I saw a wreck on the freeway this weekend. Car ran up into the right of way. It looked like there might have been some homeless people had creeped in there. So It was really, it was really sad. It was the last presenter after an all-day set of presentations, and it probably generated the most questions and comments. And her statistics also kind of characterized how this issue is all within the state, and the Las Vegas statistics were especially interesting. But anyway, it was very fascinating. I wanted to call out Thor. Thor was commended for a lot of the things he's doing. And I know the BID is going to be an instrument that we will be a member of to really help deal with some of this stuff. So that was something I thought was really, really fascinating. And seeing Thor dressed up in his yellow warning jacket out there, and he stands out so clear, I thought I'd pick on him for that. Going back to my more normal items, I want to point out free rides were offered on all RTC transit services on Earth Day, Sunday, April 22nd. We had 14,435 rides taken on RTC ride routes, representing a 14% increase for an average Sunday in April. Additionally, Route 16, which serves Idlewild Park, where the Earth Day event was held, had a 186% increase in ridership, with 482 rides taken on that Sunday. We're going to have 2 free ride days coming up in June. The first will be on June 12th, Election Primary Day, and the other will be on June 21st, the annual Dump the Pump Day. All RTC public transit services will be free the entire day on both days. I should note that all polling locations are served by transit. As part of the RTC Smart Trips program, anyone who registers their alternative mode of transportation taken starting July 21st through August 3rd are eligible to win prizes. Visit rtc.com and go to the RTC Trip Match page to register your trips for free and to read prize drawing rules. The RTC Pyramid Mccarran Intersection Improvement Project has won 2 additional awards. Associated General Contractors, Nevada chapter, gave that project the Pinnacle Award for General Engineering Contractors, and Contractors Innovation for projects over $5 million. The second award is the 2018 John L. Martin Partnered Project of the Year Diamond Award from the International Partnering Institute. So both of those awards, I think, reflect the true partnership we had and have had with Granite during that interesting and productive construction effort. Okay, the Southeast Connector is 95% complete. Yay. We are planning the official grand opening event to occur July 6th. Is that it, Michael? We're sure. Okay, we're going to hopefully have a fun walk, run, and bike event. I'm going to throw out there for staff. I think we ought to maybe have free bus rides that day too, but more details will be coming out. So anyway, that's a quick report from your executive director.
Questions or comments from Mr. Gibson? Mr. Hartung.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Gibson, when are we going to do the groundbreaking on Calle de la Plata?
Michael, or is that Rudy?
Michael Myrtle, Public Affairs Manager for RTC. Thank you for the question, Commissioner Hartung. We are going to have a groundbreaking for that traffic signal at Calle de la Plata. The contract is in transit right now, and so as soon as that contract is signed, sealed, and delivered, we will have a pre-construction meeting to determine when that construction will actually begin, and I will be able to give you a date for that groundbreaking.
Okay, well, I'd like it before my birthday, which is in November.
It'll be before your birthday.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments?
And remember what happens on your birthday, Commissioner Hartung.
That's right, I get discounted bus passes. That'll be my 60th birthday, so I get a discount on bus passes. Woo-hoo.
Yay.
That'll be a good thing.
Federal report, Mr. Gibson.
Mr. Chairman, there was a 2019 fiscal year budget hearing. I'll make this short. We have some friends who are helping us push the Virginia Street project along, including Chairman Diaz-Balart, a Republican of Florida. He's really pushing to make sure those monies and those grants get out the door so we can move forward with our capital investment grant. He pointed out that he noted the historic amount funded by the CIG program in the FY18 omnibus to fund projects. We just got to get that done. The build program, notice the funding availability is out. We're looking at what might be some opportunities. Rudy, I'm thinking you may talk a little bit about some funding opportunities at NDOT on whether or not we might look at a build grant, AKA Tiger grant for the Spaghetti Bowl. There's some other minor things in here. There's some grant notices out for low or no emissions program. We're taking a look at that. I don't know that we're going to go for that this year. The FTA apportionment notice, it makes monies available to spend. They did is out. They did note that they may issue an addendum to that to reflect capital investment grant projects. So with that, I'm sure Rudy may touch on a few of those things as my voice fades in and out, and I may have further comment during his report.
Okay, questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll move on to the NDOT monthly update. Mr. Malfavon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The big news recently was that the State Transportation Board approved what we currently calling the Early Action Project, but we'll have to do some rebranding, make it a little bit better name for this project. But it's a project that we've been discussing with RTC and Federal Highway Administration Division Office because it has what we call independent utility. It can be a standalone project, and this would widen, really address the problem that you see at Spaghetti Bowl from Wells Avenue eastbound on I-80. You need 2 lanes to go southbound, and this would address that issue by widening some bridges over the river and the railroad tracks. Give you another lane southbound on 395, 580 at the interchange towards Mill Street south. So with that board action, they approved an amendment to our current consultant contract for the Spaghetti Bowl project to add this additional scope for the design build project. We're estimating it's about a $150 million project, and it's subject to bonding that's going to be built in our next biennial budget request that would cover state fiscal year 19, starting July of 2019 through June of 2021. That's the next budget request that NDOT's currently putting together this summer for consideration by the Governor's Finance Office and eventually the legislature next year. But the important thing is that these improvements are compatible with the Spaghetti Bowl environmental impact statement. What we're seeing is coming out of the preferred alternative for that. So none of this is throwaway work. It would be a benefit a lot sooner to the community and the commuters in that area. Address some of the issues that are causing a lot of those crashes that you see, as Commissioner Jardin mentioned. The Spaghetti Bowl NEPA itself, the EIS, is still moving along. We're working with the airport staff. You saw the article about their concerns with losing direct access ramps that are currently in place with the Spaghetti Bowl EIS recommendation to come. And we're still trying to get a draft EIS by the end of this year still. But we're working with the airport staff. Obviously, they're not happy with the concept of losing those, but we're working with their new consultant. It's a good traffic engineering firm called Kittleson and Associates. So we'll continue that discussion, and also the airport has requested NDOT to present to their board in mid-June. So I'm sure that our folks are looking forward to that. But good news overall for that. With the board support of an early action project, we'll get a design build project going. And hopefully, right now we have our pre-qualification process is underway, so that'll establish which teams are going to be chasing this design build project, which is roughly about a $150 million project. And we'll try to get a firm hired and underway as soon as possible, subject to that budget authority in our next biennial budget request, which typically we don't find out our budget approval until towards the end of May next year. So, but we'll know ahead of that time by the hearings, the budget hearings at the legislature. I know that there's an important presentation coming up from our staff on I-11, and just to appreciate their efforts with going around the state, meeting in rural communities as well as up here in northern Nevada and Las Vegas to talk about the possible alternatives for Interstate 11. They're doing their work, and you'll get a more comprehensive presentation in a little bit. Regarding Pyramid Highway, so we do know that the environmental document for the 395 Pyramid Connector covered a bit of Pyramid Highway, but I asked our head of planning to look at what's not covered in that document for any kind of corridor improvements because we should be looking at that development out there and what's going to be needed in the future. So still a lot more work to do. We haven't issued any kind of request for proposals for that or how we're going to accomplish that, but it is something that we're aware of that we have to do. As well as you know, the discussion about the traffic numbers and projections. Those numbers, you know, NDOT was doing the traffic study that's projecting those numbers out. It's our best estimate. Things can change, but we are looking at that I-80 corridor, and as part of that planning study, we're looking at alternatives. So the La Posada alternative, for instance, from East Sparks out to as an alternate route to the Tri-Center. We did put up some temporary signals recently while we're building the permanent signal at Electric Avenue out there at USA Parkway. So we know that we've got some more work to do along that corridor on I-80, but this planning study will direct us to what improvements are needed in the future. And as Lee mentioned, we're looking at what was formerly known as Tiger, is now called Build. And the idea
for 1
is...
second. Michael, could you?
The concept is that we would look at what projects could lend themselves to compete well for those build grants. There's a substantial amount of money. They seem to be looking at any projects where you're bringing a lot of state and local funding, not the federal funds. They want to leverage the amount of federal money. I'm assuming that it's about the 20% federal that they were looking at, but anything, you know, if we're bonding a project, maybe that would be a good, the early action project could be a good candidate project, or even the future phases of Spaghetti Bowl that are, you know, over $2 billion needed to construct that is a rough estimate right now for that EIS. But I think that we still have to do some work. I think that those, the deadline's going to be approaching, and we have to get going for looking at those candidate projects. But I think the early action project, if we're going to bond it, might be something that we could get some federal grant money. It'd be a good competitor, I think, for that build grant program. And I'm willing to answer any questions from the board.
Questions or comments? Mr. Hartung.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, I'd love to see, Mr. Malfaban, a model of what would happen if we did some lane restrictions. This is something I've suggested for quite some time. There was Councilwoman Jardin brought up the accident that was on I-80 the other day, which was boy, that was a barn burner. And it would be nice to just look at lane restrictions. I know that lane restrictions, when they were doing some improvements on the section from I-80 south on what I'll always call 395, but 395-580. I know that the lane restrictions were, that Sam Lampa and others had suggested were very successful in reducing that sort of lateral movement. And it'd be nice to just see what the model looks like if you were to do lane restrictions on the 1 and 2 lane on I-80 from, let's just say, Center Street to 395, just past the southbound off-ramp. And just to see what will happen where people cannot move over. I experienced an issue some months back where a job van from the number 1 lane decided he was going to exit the freeway southbound and literally crossed all the lanes, and blessedly one of us was paying attention and it wasn't him. Or he would have clipped me and we would have had a major accident there. So I've experienced a lot of that lateral movement, and I'd just like to see what the model says, which when you restrict those either just 1 or 1 and 2 lanes. It'd be nice to just have a look. Thank you.
Okay, and any other questions or comments? Might I suggest that maybe at our other meetings, Rudy, that when we're talking about things like Pyramid Highway, feel free to jump in, and you don't have to limit your participation just to your words. And same thing with the board. If we have some issues on Pyramid that we're talking about, and we were talking about them, ask him the questions.
Yeah, and if I may, Mr. Chairman, thank you, Mr. Malfaban, for keeping Pyramid Highway in the queue. I know we have issues going 395 or 580 north. Those are immediate. We need to solve that. There's no question that the North Valley's that needs to be solved, but it's nice to keep these other things in the queue, and as they're, as we can address them and at least look at the studies. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments? Okay, we'll move on to 6.1, acknowledge receipt of the 4th Street Prater Way Monthly Progress Report. Warren, welcome.
Thank you. Warren Call, RTC Project Manager for 4th and Prater Rapid Transit Project. A little nervous here. Anyway, I'm here to give you a construction status update on the project, and we'll roll into the PowerPoint presentation right now. The project status on the schedule, out of 360 working days, we were at 315, which is about 83% of the working days as of 5/21/18. The completion right now on the schedule is the end of August of 2018. The budget of a $42.3 million project, which is the total cost of the project, we've spent $27.8 million earned to date, and that's progress payment 15. We've had 15 progress payments. Construction activity over the past month, utility work. We're working, still remaining on Evans Avenue, the storm drain work. Still working on that due to the utility conflicts. Tumwell Water Main, substantially complete on that. Reno Dry utility work. We have joint trenches near Evans, as you can see on the slide there. Quite a bit of underground activity. Traffic signal interconnect conduits. We have to put those in on the north side. Install signal poles, street lighting conduit, foundations, poles between 6th and Sutro Street. Sparks Dry utility work, removing the power poles, about it for that. We're done all with the underground utility work in Sparks. Construction activities over the past month continued. Civil improvements, Sparks paving between 18th and El Rancho Boulevard. Actually, that's El Rancho Drive. El Rancho intersection paving, currently underway. Should have that completed by this week, weather permitting, of course. Placement of curb, gutter, sidewalk in Reno from Galletti Way to Sutro along the north side is underway. The BRT bus rapid transit stops, steel structures at Sutro eastbound, foundations at Galletti Way westbound, and El Rancho Drive eastbound. On our outreach program for the ongoing upcoming paving closures, we have a business outreach walks, pedestrian access walks, and continued coordination with our partners NDOT, Sparks, and the City of Reno. Planned construction activities over the next month into June. In the Reno work, placement of curb, gutter, sidewalk, and street lights along the north side of the road to Wells Avenue, heading west to east. Also between Evans Avenue and Valley Road. Remaining items of dry utility conduit work on the north side of the road, AT&T and Charter items near Evans, which is your joint trenching, and then the Reno paving, which is scheduled to start mid-June. Sparks work will complete the El Rancho paving, which is, like I say, completed this week. Hopefully have that striped out by the middle of the week. Paving below I-80 starting in early June, and the bus rapid transit work, 15th Street and El Rancho. Upcoming traffic control, the El Rancho closure, again, is happening right now and should be done this week. The I-80 closure, which is going to be closing Prater Way and the on and off ramps between Victoria and Galletti. This is scheduled to happen between June 4th and June 16th. And then lastly, the Reno paving phased with two-way traffic, intermittent and alternating side street closures, and Sutro Street intersection will be a full reconstruct under a closure as well with detours. Having said that, whoops, any questions?
Questions or comments? Ms. Jordan.
Thank you very much. Could you go back to your outreach slide, please?
Okay.
I don't see a page number.
Right there.
So I get with some regularity Miss Echeverria she filled out a form, but she wasn't here today. She, I think, lives above Zaggle, and I think she's disabled, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, ma'am.
How much in advance of a pavement closure, because she has to figure out all of her routes to get where she needs to go, how much notice do they get before the construction, before the restriction to the sidewalk?
We hope to get out ahead of there by like 2 weeks or so, get the
Okay.
notices out.
She had indicated that it was a day, and I was like, I didn't know.
Well, I don't think it's a day, but
All right. Where are you with the construction at that exact, you know what I'm talking about?
Yes,
You know where
ma'am.
Zaggle is?
yes, ma'am.
Is that,
Right now, we're in front of her, in front of her residence, which is west of Wells Avenue. We're putting in the infrastructure for the lighting and the irrigation, after which we'll put in the sidewalk, our curb and gutter, and then the sidewalks as well. So it's torn up right now, unfortunately, but that's the process we need to take to get the work done. We're not in the roadway yet.
okay, do you know how much longer you'll be just in that section? I think she's kind of looking at how much longer while her street's tore up, and I haven't had a solid response to give her.
Is it where the street's torn up?
Well, where, that's going to impact her. Imagine you're living there.
Yes, ma'am.
How long do you think before you're out of that little area? Month, 2 months?
Probably a month and a half, 2 months.
Okay, thank you.
And that's including the road work and stuff as well.
Warren, how do we notify those folks?
The contractor goes around and hands out notices.
Why don't we hand out this notice, give them that, they can see in advance what we're going to do?
I can do that, yes, sir.
Why don't we do that? And then at least they can look and see what's going to happen, then ask their questions.
At that particular residence?
No, everybody that you notify, those homes, when you go around, tell them, hey, we're going to be in front of your house next week or in 2 weeks. Just give them this whole thing, tell them that they're going to be there, but they'll have some idea when we're going to be there.
Yes, sir. I'll do
Okay,
that.
Mr. McKenzie.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I noticed we've added an additional 13 days to the contract. We've got a total of 72 additional days added to it now, and you show 46 that were justified extensions.
Well, we've got 28 working days, weather days, which is a day that they can't work, and today it's not counted as a working
So I
day.
say you've got 46 justified days, the weather days, and then the days that you're related due to utility delays across issues with Tumwa or whoever that caused delays.
Yes,
So that's 46 out of 72 days that we've given them on the contract, or days that are normally given under a contract for weather or for some type of a delay that's beyond the contractor's control. Where are the additional days coming from?
Out of the 46 out of the 72, or the delta of 46 and 72?
Well, I mean, you've given them 72 total days on the contract, and only 46 of them are justified in your chart. So there's 26 additional days that we've given them for some reason or another on the contract, and those are days that they should be in penalty. Those aren't days that we should be extending the completion of contract.
Okay, might I like to look into that, please? Might I look into that and get back with you?
Yeah, I'd like to know why we're giving them additional days, because under normal contract, if you don't have a weather day or if you haven't got a reason for giving them a day, they pay penalty on it at the end of the contract if they don't get completed by the date that you set for the contract. And we're giving them working days on this thing. Every month, we extend these days, and these days, the extension is always greater than the justified days. And those are penalties that this contractor should be paying because they're not performing. They shouldn't be days that the people in the city of Reno and the city of Sparks have got to suffer through their construction project because they're not completing it in a timely manner. You know, the people in Reno have lived with this project since the first day it started.
We're about.
At least the guys in Sparks have got stuff closing up for them now.
It's a good
Once we
thing.
get that I-80 work done underneath the bridge, we'll pretty much be done with Sparks, so,
Okay. Would you look into that, please, and get back to Mr. McKenzie?
yes, sir.
Michael?
Mr. Chairman, Michael Marino, Public Affairs Manager for RTC. I just want to supplement the information that Warren has provided you with regard to the outreach. In addition to the contractor contacting property owners of upcoming construction activities, we have a number of different ways that we are notifying the public of what activity is going to be coming up. And we do that through social media. We do that through the media the media releases that we issue. With regards to Mrs. Echeverria, we have ongoing correspondence with her with regards to what is going on with her. We've been talking with her for, I think, at least 6 months at the very minimum, and she's getting information in advance of these construction activities, at least by 2 weeks. When this construction, these closures that are coming up here real soon, we provided that information to her via email.
Okay.
I believe it was about a week ago last Friday. So, but we also encourage the public, if they're interested in getting construction updates on the Fourth Prater project, they can go to fourthprater.com to subscribe to get that information, as well as project stakeholder updates, which are issued weekly to let people know where we are with construction.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? That's good. Ms. Jordan?
Thank you very much. When you're in correspondence with them, do you let them know that, their neighborhood will be impacted for approximately the next 6 weeks? I think everybody's looking for the light at the end of the tunnel.
So are we.
Do we give that information? I
we
know you
do.
don't want to give a solid, because everything can move based on weather or finding something that you didn't.
And we give them as much information as we have available at the time. Unfortunately, those activities tend to change day to day, right up to the start of that construction activity. But to the best of our ability, we give them as much information as possible.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Looking for motion to accept the report. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you, Warren.
Thank you.
7.1, MPO, receive a presentation, the I-11 Northern Nevada Alternatives Analysis. Come on down and introduce yourselves. How are you?
Good afternoon. My name's Kevin Berry. I'm with the Nevada Department of Transportation. I'll give you a quick briefing on the I-11 Northern Nevada Alternatives Analysis. I'll give you a little background on I-11, the purpose of the I-11 and the planning and environmental linkages documentation, as well as the methodology around the alternatives analysis, and then some next steps. So to begin with, I-11 and the Intermountain West Corridor study was completed in 2014. This was a joint effort between Nevada and Arizona. Basically, it was a high-level look at some corridors between Las Vegas and Phoenix. We also did some connectivity planning between Las Vegas and the northern border of Nevada. Once the analysis was done, we took that to our transportation board, and it was approved that the analysis between Las Vegas and the northern border would basically be on the western side of Nevada. This designation carried forward into what's currently our FAST Act, which is our transportation bill that we're currently operating under. So to give you some perspective, we're in the initial phases of our analysis. What this will allow us to do is document the planning process through what's called planning and environmental linkages. This will help set the foundation for future studies. More importantly, the NEPA studies to follow, so that we don't have to kind of have any repeat or back steps in the planning process. So what is PEL? PEL is an approach to document the planning process conducted so that we don't have any repeat analysis done. This current study should be completed late summer, early fall. There's numerous opportunities for public input. All relevant stakeholders were involved, as well as resource agencies, and again, the public. And then the outcome. Again, this allows, what the planning environmental linkages study does is it allows us to document our analysis so that we can carry this forward into any NEPA processes that may take place to advance I-11. So big picture, we want to advance I-11 through a federally recognized collaborative process, document both the issues as well as the constraints and opportunities, formulate a plan for I-11 over the next 10 to 20 years, and then help Nevada prepare any corridor preservation if lands bill is to advance or are to advance. So some assumptions, again, the I-11 Intermountain West Corridor study helped us identify the study area. Again, it was approved by the Transportation Board and then also designated within the FAST Act. That's the western side of the state and outlined in blue. It's a 250-mile long corridor, basically from Las Vegas to I-80. We've broken our analysis into two segments. Segment A is from Las Vegas to Tonopah. As you can see, we're pretty constrained in this area due to topography as well as land ownership. Segment B is from Tonopah to I-80. Here we have 4 alternatives with a number of connections if there are any fatal flaws within those corridors. So those are the corridors we're looking at. The evaluation criteria is set forth here. Basically, it mirrors what we did with the original I-11 Intermountain West Corridor study that looked at that corridor between Las Vegas and Phoenix. The corridors will be compared against one another from most favorable to least favorable. Next steps. So we've had a number of public meetings. We've had 6 public meetings throughout the state, starting in Las Vegas and coming up to Reno as well as Carson. We've had a number of one-on-ones with cities. We've had some tribal outreach. Again, we're introducing the study to all these stakeholders. We're currently, right now, in the evaluation process. So what we're doing is we've got a draft of the analysis, and we're going to present that to the public as well as the stakeholders and any other relevant resource agencies in early July. And then after that, we'll prepare a final executive summary. So with that, if you have any questions, comments for me, let me know.
Questions or comments? I'll take the 10 years instead of the 20 years if we can do that.
Yeah, so would I.
Okay, 11 at the out.
So yeah, that's a little misleading. The 10 to 20 years is just what Nevada DOT, how they're going to kind of prepare themselves to be ready for the next 10 to 20 years for what I-11 could be. So that whole 450-mile corridor won't be done into, the 10 to 20 year mark, but what it'll do is help us identify those next steps.
Okay, thank you.
Question?
Yes, Ms. Jordan.
Thank you very much. The, I call it the fork, the one that goes up and has different
I'm gonna just bounce back to the
alternatives, proposed corridor alternatives?
that one.
How long before you have to make an ultimate decision on this one?
So the analysis will basically, again, vet the 4 alternatives and any alternatives that came up through the public meeting process. The way I frame this is that this helps NDOT, through this planning effort, identify potential needs within these corridors. So to answer your question, when would I get to that point of where, if it's going to be B3, B2, is that the fork that you're talking about, or are we talking about the fork where it goes from B1 to, or yeah, 1 to B2, B3, B4?
Well, to be or not to be, yeah. What I'm trying to get at is I know there's discussions, certainly the city of Reno right now, talking about, okay, so should it go the B4 route that shoots up through our main cities, and truck traffic is likely the largest volume? What sort of impacts does that have, both pros and cons, versus a different alternative? So I think when we go back to the city, we want to be able to say, that's not going to be ultimately decided until X and those studies are being done. I'm just trying to say when do you have to pull the trigger on which alternative, or when do you anticipate pulling the trigger?
So by the next round of public meetings, we will have some recommendations. To say that we're going to eliminate all of them except one would be a stretch. Some of the draft documentation that I'm seeing right now is we'll probably have two kind of higher up candidates for those 4 corridors, and then 2 that kind of maybe don't weight as well. So to your point, we would probably move forward with maybe 2 recommendations is what I'd like to see happen. We've gone through a lot of trouble and work to get here, so within the next, by January, I wish, by July, August, we should have identified or necked down these alternatives.
Down to the preferred 2.
I'd like to say 2.
Okay.
Again, we're looking at them, again, most favorable to least favorable. So
Okay.
2 might win and 2 might be on the kind of the outer side of that favorability. So I'm hoping we can come back, finish this study with 2 alternatives that we're looking at.
Thank you.
They're very big corridors. Again, what this does is helps us as NDOT prepare for the next 20 years, 30 years, 40 years of how we're going to look at the 95, look at 395. How are we going to put ourselves in a good position to make good planning choices moving forward?
So to that point, will this board be getting a presentation before you pull the trigger on the reduction down to 2 on the preferred alternative with data about what sort of traffic is likely to come from that? So we provide input? There's just lots of discussion about, we talk about the spaghetti bowl with great regularity and the concerns there. And there could be economic benefits of running it through our main cities, or there could be negative impacts if it is largely truck traffic on an already difficult spaghetti bowl. When does that come back here?
So we can come back with our results, and that's what we're going to do in our next round. So the August timeframe would be when we would come back with what we're recommending. Again, it's a planning study. We'd hope we'd stick to those recommendations, and we'd have that proof behind them to give you guys the best view of how we made our decisions.
Okay, that's good. Thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Hartung?
Is there any chance we get 2, like B4 and B3, build them both?
We probably wouldn't build them both. Again, they're already, so one thing I didn't explain is that the solid lines represent existing facility. The dashed are facilities that would need
And
to be
that's,
built.
and I guess the point is that you've got some great options there to move a lot of commerce through that western portion of Nevada. Some friends say B3 would be better, some friends say B4 would be better. I agree with my friends.
Yeah, so do I. I think that we have to remember that all of these are still Nevada's priority, NDOT's priority. So they're not going away. What we're looking at doing is making substantial improvements to 1 as that priority kind of rises up. So if B2 were to rise to the top, the other facilities would still be considered important and meet our priorities. They would just, when we moved into the other alternative, let's say B2, and we noticed something at Schurz warranted some improvement, we'd then say that because we've selected that, we need to look at that as improving it to, or getting it ready to improve to an interstate facility.
So, last question, if I may, Mr. Chairman. So are you doing EIS studies on all of the routes?
No. So we're just doing an alternative analysis of the corridor. So what we're doing is vetting these corridors against each other.
Okay.
What we're doing is hoping to help prepare NDOT to move into that next step, which would
Okay.
be NEPA. That's part of why the documentation with what is the tool, the Planning and Environmental Linkages tool, does for us. It helps us move from that planning decision into a NEPA decision, or into NEPA a little bit quicker.
Well, here's the only reason I ask that, and I'm sorry if I interrupted
no,
you, but
that's
the only
okay.
reason I ask that is that, you know, when you go through that EIS, through the NEPA process, it may be that one of the other alternatives is better. And you know, you may find that there are issues with using the B3 route or the B4 route, and my sense would be that the B4 route is probably going to actually impact more people in some will say positive, some will say negative, but you know, those are major centers, taking it through that far western side of the state. And so it would be interesting to see if that might drive the process. What happens if you choose a route and then the NEPA process shoots it down? What happens?
Well, and maybe I wasn't very clear. What the idea is that within that let's say I'm gonna not pick on B4 because it's too close. Let's just say B3. Let's say
Okay.
B3 was our alternative.
Okay?
Within that alternative corridor, we would then, as priority moved the need, we'd then look within that B3 corridor for the alternatives. Because what planning and environmental linkages does is it allows us to eliminate the B4, the B2, and the B1, so we can concentrate our effort on those corridor, or those alignments within just B3. So you have to realize that these are really wide lines. They don't look wide, but they're very wide. So how would we, let's say B3 was the chosen, and we needed to get around Silver Springs. That's when we'd get into that NEPA process, to where we'd start looking at that alignment issue of, okay, we don't have to look at B4 anymore, we don't have to look at B2. What we're looking at is B3 and the alignments that sit in B3.
Okay. Understood. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, any more questions or comments? I know we beat the bees. Kevin, thank you for the report.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, move on to 7.2. Approve the projects for the federal fiscal year 2019-2020 transportation alternatives. Set-aside program is recommended by the TAC and Citizens Multimodal Advisory Committee. Amy.
Thank you. Amy Cummings, RTC Planning. And we have for action today the recommended by the advisory committees slate of projects for FY19 and FY20 transportation alternatives set aside. And RTC, as the MPO, receives about $390,000 a year that then needs to be allocated out for various projects. The guidelines and application process for this was approved by this board in 2016. So we issued the call for projects in November. The deadline was in January. And then just this month, our advisory committees made their recommendation. We were able to fund all of the applications that came in, although some were scalable and did reduce their dollar amount requests a little bit so that we came in under our budgeted amount. And these are the FY19 projects you see here: City of Sparks, Sun Valley Diversion Regional Trail Rehab Project. RTC submitted an application for bike helmet outreach, bike share education, and bike share transit pass integration to support our regional bike share program. The Reno Bike Project submitted a bicycling education and safety program for teens, and then Washoe County School District submitted a bicycle and pedestrian education program for K through 8. So that is the 2019 list of projects, and in 2020, it's City of Reno, Hunter Lake Elementary School area sidewalk improvements, including some on California Avenue. City of Sparks, again, this is phase 2 of the same regional trail rehab project. Reno Bike Project and Washoe County School District had phase 2s or continuations of their outreach and education programs as well. And
Is that
concludes
it?
my presentation. Yes,
Okay.
staff concurred with the recommendations of the committee, so bring that here for your action today.
Okay, questions or comments? Okay, I do have a public comment, so let me open up the public comment. Kathy, Brad, Hurst, come on down. Welcome, Kathy.
Thank you. My name is Kathy Brandhorst, and I am the United States President. We were just talking about bombs on 4th and Prater. There are lots of bombs on that street. Fewer construction workers, that's why it's taken so long to rebuild it.
Kathy, we're talking about the
Yeah, we're
federal
talking
fiscal years
set-aside
2019 and
program.
20, so please stick to the agenda
Well,
item.
I'm talking about the set-aside program.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Because this has been set aside, and I don't know why. But I am trying to tell you what I know to let you know what the set-aside program is. I mean, it's still there. Also, I just wanted to let you know a bomb was in front of the bus, and it was thrown right in front of the bus. The bridge, under the bridge, it's a very big, large hole in that bridge since the bombs were hitting on that 4th and Prater Way streets. All the accidents that I've had on those buses, I never sued RTC. RTC put the lawsuits in themselves. The bus drivers that were never hired are still driving the buses. And this is another thing that was set aside program. Why don't they just destroy the bus drivers that were never hired? They're all on death row. A little boy, he was trying to help us, in, this is going to be a little bit off the set-aside program, but he tried to help us in, not construction, but he tried to help us destroy the death row, and he did over 100 that were died that in death row. He is the giant robot. And I also wanted to let you know, I also helped out, and I heard that I've had about 65. Oh. And this little boy, he had to be put back together after he did this for the United States. Too many times. And I do want to say this again, this is set-aside program. Why is this all still going on? That you have not put it all back together by helping the bus drivers, by helping the people on the buses who take the bus every day. This is still a big program that must be set aside.
Thank you, Kathy. Any other people in the audience wish to speak at this time? Okay, we'll bring it back to the commission, looking for an action, or, I'm sorry, I've lost my train of thought.
Approval of the transportation set-aside.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. We'll move on to 7.3, acknowledge the receipt of the RTC 2017 annual report. Amy.
Thank you, Amy Cummings, RTC Planning. And this is a condensed version of the highlights that are included in the annual report. And we cover some of the highlights again from the various activities that RTC has undertaken over the last year. Of course, we were very pleased to have finished the Pyramid-Mccarran intersection. That was a major improvement for an intersection that sees about 60,000 cars a day to improve safety and traffic operations. The Southeast Connector we've already discussed. We're looking forward to that opening here in just about a month and a half. And we've already spoken about 4th and Prater. We have had significant progress on the construction. You can see an example here of the dramatic impact this is going to have for improving pedestrian safety, providing bike lanes, and we're expecting completion later this summer. Our next big construction project is going to be the Virginia Street Rapid Extension, and you can see here the image of the transformation of the Midtown sidewalks. Again, we're progressing on our design here and hope to have the utility work underway this fall. We continue to do a range of other spot improvements and other improvements for pedestrian ramps, crosswalks. We've added about 4 miles of sidewalks, 4 miles of bike lanes, as well as improved lighting to support multimodal safety. In terms of transit, we've been providing additional mobility options for our residents. We had about 7.5 million transit trips taken last year on fixed route, about 225,000 on RTC access. We've also brought our mobility center into Centennial Plaza to do those ADA access evaluations. We've also supported our electric bus program through the Villanova bus facility maintenance upgrades. So that's equipping us to expand our electric vehicle fleet. In terms of RTC Smart Trips, again, we're providing more mobility options for our region, and we've added 30 van pools. We've got 1,300 people a day on average participating in our Smart Trips program. And Smart Trips includes the van pools, our trip matching program, and our bus pass subsidy program. Of course, community engagement is central to everything that we do. This is the foundation of all of the planning studies. As you know, we completed the Regional Transportation Plan, the Sustainability Plan, the Bicycle Pedestrian Master Plan last year, and all of those are grounded in community input. And you can see here we presented at or participated in about 178 meetings and public events last year, over 100 media interviews, 156 air dates for the Road Ahead with RTC on Colo 8, and of course, at customer service at our transit stations, we're continuing to provide great customer service for our patrons. And we continue to work with our regional partners. We know that working collaboratively helps to advance the interests of Reno, Sparks, and Washoe County, so we've been doing that with other governing bodies in the jurisdictions over the last year. We're proud to have received 8 awards over the last year. That includes 2 sustainability-related awards, the Community Partner Award from EDON, and that includes project awards, as well as for some of our programs, like supporting vaccine clinics at our transit stations. And we're continuing our commitment to sustainability by printing fewer of our annual reports this year. I believe that you do have copies there, and we will be printing copies upon request. But we are making sure people know they can find this on our website. You'll be able to read it like a magazine on our webpage or download the PDF. And this will make this information so that we're held accountable to the public, available easily for everyone. So that concludes the presentation on the annual report, and I'm happy to answer questions.
Okay, questions or comments? Mr. Hartung.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Cummings, it's a great report, but I do have a question about maybe not, and I don't know how many people are using the van pool, but in terms of maybe access and some other real specific rides, have we looked at using Uber in its place? Because I mean, I got to tell you, I've been the times that I've used Uber, it's been a great experience. It's fast. It's far cheaper than taking a taxi cab. I've been on like the Uber pools where you meet at a specific point and you get picked up, and I was quite impressed with it.
Well, we do have our Taxi Bucks program and Washoe County Senior Rides, so that's a discount that you can have for a taxi ride.
Right.
And I may refer to Mark Maloney. I know he's working on a concept for microtransit as part of our upcoming RFP for fixed routes. So I'll let you speak to that a little bit more.
Mark Maloney, Trans Operations Manager. And actually with our 5310 grant program, the Sierra Nevada Transportation Coalition, for the disabled, they have a 75% reduced fare on Lyft program that's been operating since about January. That's taking off very well. Next month, when we bring back the access changes, as Ms. Cummings talked about, our taxi bucks program, we're looking to do a 75% subsidy on that program, and then also incorporate Lyft into that. Lyft has been a little bit more willing to come to the table and work with the public entities. They have a successful operation right now down in Omnitrans that we're kind of modeling after. So next month we'll be bringing that back. And as Ms. Cummings talked about, we'll also be bringing back in the summer our microtransit, which we have one for Sparks and one in the North Valleys in the Reno area, which is kind of a hybrid of that, but with the app type operation, but it's done more in a van type operated through our own contractors.
And the only reason I bring this up is because I've had direct experience with the need for transit at facilities like, let's say, dialysis centers, where they don't necessarily need a paratransit van to assist them. They just need a ride because they're incapable of driving themselves. And so I'm just wondering if we can reduce some of our costs by utilizing some of these other services. And if Lyft has been more proactive in working with us, I mean, I think that's fine, but I use Uber as an all-surrounding term, Kleenex.
Right, and obviously we try to get everyone possible so people have choices.
Yes.
The bigger pool, the better on our end. But as I mentioned, next month when we bring back kind of directly onto that, we were talking about changing the out of service zone area and then the night of day, and those are exactly what we're looking at, is replacing that with the Taxi Bucks program and the Lyft or Uber, whoever comes along with that, so that people have options to be able to do dialysis that don't need a vehicle that has a wheelchair lift operation. Or if they did, and on a short notice, because obviously sometimes they're very tired after it and need different service. Then sometimes they're fine and can operate from it. So it's one of those hard to pin down, and something more flexible will help them better.
Those dialytic hangovers can, sometimes they have them, sometimes they don't, and it can be very, very difficult. But I guess, and I know we refer to them as taxi bucks, but I would implore, if there's people from the taxi industry that are listening to this, you guys need to be more competitive, and we'll use that service. I mean, I think that they need to understand that we're on a very limited budget, and we can find the service elsewhere, and so they're really going to have to step up and bring us their A game if they want to stay in this business. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, any more questions or comments? Thank you, Amy. Need a motion to accept the report? We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? It passes unanimously. Thank you. 8.1, rate the Regional Transportation Commission performance for fiscal year 2018, July 1st, 2017 to June 30th, 2018. Angela, welcome.
Thank you. Angela Reich, Director of Administrative Services, for the record. And the item before you is to rate the RTC, the agency rating for fiscal year 18. And I'm here just to give you a brief overview of that. And so in your agenda packet, you will find a list of the FY18 goals as well as the department accomplishments. And that's why we're here today, for you to rate the agency. Next month, all employees will receive an evaluation based on their individual goals, which hopefully relate to the agency goals. And then next month, we'll be bringing you an item for you to rate Mr. Gibson on his FY18 goals. Just a little bit of background information. We've been using a pay-for-performance pool since 2013, and it was part of the proposed FY19 budget. For those employees who are eligible to receive pay-for-performance, they will receive that effective July 1st. So the board rates the agency based on our goals, and you'll be able to provide feedback about our accomplishments. And for common review, we do all of our employee evaluations at the same time every year. So all employees do receive their evaluations, and which are electronic, by the way. Pay for performance. This is the 6th year that we've brought this item to you for you to rate the agency. And the agency rating does affect the size of the pay for performance pool. So it also, as I have stated previously, increases your involvement and transparency for the agency in what we're doing. The pay for performance pool is based on 2 markets. It's a combination of the CIPSN and CPI and the sales tax. CIPSN tracks the competitive compensation market. As you know, we are market driven in terms of our compensation philosophy. So the board before you today is able to rate the agency between 0.6 up to 1.5, and that affects 1/3 of the total pay for performance pool. So this is an example only, but just to give you, again, an overview. So 1/3 of the pool, which is what you'll be talking about today, would be, let's say, approximately $60,000. If the agency goals are met and you allocated 100%, that would be 1/3 of the allocation. If they're not met, then that actually reduces the pay for performance pool. If you rate above the 100% up to 1.5%, then that may increase our pay for performance pool. With that, then whatever you rate the agency on, our employees are eligible for an allocated portion of that. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions or comments? Mr. Hartung?
Sorry. This doesn't include our bus drivers, does it?
No, it doesn't. They're not our employees.
Okay. Where's the incentive for them?
They
You
work
know, I
for,
mean, in other
they don't
words-
work for us.
Yeah, I understand, but they do work for us. Even though they're a contractor. So when we give a contract to somebody, let's just say it's a construction company, and they finish ahead of time, and they complete all of the aspects of the contract, and they've performed in an exemplary fashion. Do we give them a bonus?
I have to look to my attorneys, but I think that would be dependent upon what the contract terms
Right.
were.
I'm pretty sure we do, because we fine them if they're over. All I'm saying is that it would be nice to have something in place to, and I recognize that they're on a contractual basis, but it'd be nice to have something that could be given to them as well as part of the contract. Those are my only comments. Thank you.
Mr. Gibson?
Mr. Chair, if I may just point out, Mr. Hartung is correct. We do have a number of incentives and penalties in our construction and service contracts. What we do, however, need to remember that we are not allowed to interfere in the labor relations of contractors. Being that said, though, we can design various incentive and penalty programs. Later this year, you will be looking at an RFP for the fixed route service, the bus drivers, and we're going to be looking at various concepts such as livable wages, et cetera, to help maybe narrow or expand the bandwidth, if you will, of the opportunities for the contractor to incentivize its employees through performance. So I think that's something, and Mr. McKenzie's correct. I mean, we're having a tough time with bus drivers right now. I mean, wages are just going through the roof. You can go out to Tri-Center or go up into the North Valleys and drive a truck or a bulldozer for a lot more, and those wages are going up and up and up. So this will be something we come back later in the year and walk you through to help understand how we can better influence that decision.
Well, and I think it's always wise to incentivize and pay good employees for exemplary performance, and those are my only comments. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Mr. McKenzie.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of comments, and they aren't, it in no way distracts from the good job that staff has done this year, but for our planning stuff, it'd be nice if we got a little more input from RTCs in planning about getting some of these capacity road projects moving a little faster. When we have projects come in that we're not getting a comment that we need capacity from RTC, it's pretty hard to get planning department and at our level to try to second guess that opinion from RTC planning. So it'd be just nice if we get a little more proactive and get ahead of this the curve. We're working with our staff to try to improve that as well. But one of the reasons we're so far behind the 8 ball on capacity is that we're not planning for capacity. We're reacting to capacity needs, and it'd be nice to have our planning, our traffic planning, our regional traffic planning people leading the way on that and sort of giving direction to our local governments on what our capacity needs are a little better. And then the same thing on the engineering. I mean, I come from a construction background, and if you're not doing a job in a timely manner, it's not very often you get a public agency to work with you on days that you can't make up because of something that you're doing wrong. If it's something that's going on around the project that the contractor's got no control over, more times than not, you're fighting with the public agency to get time for days that you have no control over. And when we have contracts that we're giving days to a contractor and there's not a justification of why we're giving them those days, that's the public's faith in us getting projects done is based upon how well those projects are managed. And when you have a project that's got such an interface like this 4th Street Prater project does with the public, and is putting the public in the, out of their way to navigate that project on a daily basis, and we've got residents that are dealing with that and businesses that are dealing with that, and that project just keep building out days past the original end date, that's not good for our image with the public about how well we can manage these contracts. So, and I understand there's a lot of complicated issues go in that I may not know what's going on there, but I can tell you what you're presenting me is telling me that we're giving them days, and the public is a lot less informed about what's going on, why they're getting extra days on that project and why it's gone on as long. And there's people that have been, from the first day we put a shovel in the ground on that project, that they have been impacted, and they'll still be impacted the last day when we finish it out. They'll be still getting impacted, and they're not very happy, and we hear about it all the time. And I'm sure you get calls here occasionally as well, but I hear from those people on that 4th Street corridor every day about how bad the roads is because they're not doing a good job patching potholes and stuff. Person navigating that, tearing their vehicle apart. So if I just would like to see our engineering get a little more involved in these projects and making sure that they're getting done in a timely manner and that it's having the least impact as possible on the public. And I say, I don't have a problem with the way we've met our goals and stuff. Those are just a couple of points I'd like to see us work on in a coming year to try to address as we move forward.
Okay, Ms. Jordan.
Thank you very much. I know one of the things we put in our, this is impressive, by the way, all of the agency accomplishments for 2018. Everything looks really good in there. I know one of the things we talk about is safety. It's our #1 driving factor. And we talk about the outreach. We're putting $600,000, did I have that number correct, towards marketing. Which marketing for everybody to be safe, put their cell phones away, look both ways, et cetera, et cetera. Is there a priority in the coming year for the Vision Zero? Because that's actual policy stuff that gets beyond the marketing campaign, which is critical to me. But the Vision Zero stuff gets to the meat of, as Councilmember McKenzie is saying, if you know a large development project is coming in, or a school, or a university is expanding at double-digit rates, doing the study in advance of what the safety improvements for that area as it's coming in, so that we're not, after the fact, putting in a crosswalk, putting in additional light improvements, but kind of in conjunction with, or even in advance of, that's something I'd like to see in the next year, is the Vision Zero really kind of be the policy document for the safety, pedestrian safety in particular, and bicycle safety. But other than that, I mean, I think it's been a great year. I think it's been a great year, lots of great accomplishments. The agency is functioning lean and functioning well amidst a tough labor market. I mean, there's no question, everybody's competing for top talent. And, you know, we're very lucky to have the employees we have at RTC and who are doing fine work, and we're thankful for it.
Okay, for me, I think last year we docked the agency for a very good reason. We went down to 1.4. The year before that, it was 1.5. From my point of view, I think when they do a good job and they meet all their goals and maybe a few bumps in the road here and there, I can't think of any right now, that we reward them. So I will throw out a motion for 1.5.
That's a motion, I'll second.
That's a motion. You know, and we have a motion and a second, so for further discussion, I did have another formula. We had a golf tournament yesterday, and Lee's team had a team, Adam had a team, and Paul had a team. And we take all those scores together and divide by 3, it comes out to a .63, but I don't think that'd be very fair if we did that. So we have a motion and a second on the floor. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thanks, Angela. Good job, RTC. 8.2, Dale, legal issues.
I have, for a few months, been trying to get all of you in a room before one of our meetings for a legal briefing, and I would really like to do that next month. If you guys could put on your calendar before next month's commission meeting, maybe allow me at least 45 minutes to give you a report on...
we can't stay awake that long.
I'll bring coffee and donuts. Sure.
You'll bring the donuts.
So Denise, would you see if you can get that on the schedule for us?
Okay, thank you.
That's it?
Yeah.
All right. We'll move on to 9.0, public comment. I've got one card. Kathy Brandhurst, come on down. Anybody wishing to speak during public comment can talk about anything they'd like, and we need you to fill out a card.
My name is Kathy Brandhorst, and I am the United States President. I still live in their home. I'm still on C Street, and I am living in somebody's home. I have been paying my rent, though, to the management of that home, but they keep telling me I don't live there. I need to move as soon as possible. But I'm still there. So this is what's happening now. The children are homeless. That's supposed to be living in my home. They crawl inside the hole to stay warm. This hole is a great big hole under the bridge that was caused by a bomb. The hole has been there for about a year. And that's the same place that we are talking about. It's 4th Street and Still Prater. You know, it's taken a long time even to prepare that great big hole under the bridge. But the kids thought they were safe and warm in that hole under the bridge because everybody saw it. And I saw somebody crawling in there and he looked very small. He's just homeless and he needed some warmth and comfort. So I just wanted to bring this up to that these children do have that apartment that I live in. but it's taken so long, to move me out. I don't know what the problem is. I've been looking and looking and looking, and I have noticed that somebody else is living in that house or apartment or wherever I need to go to see to find out if there's somebody living there or not. But from the real estate office, they always tell me, it's empty, Kathy. Go inside, push the door open. You'll be able to get inside because there's nobody that lives there at all. Well, as soon as I get to this place, there's somebody living inside the house. And they say they live there, but then I find out they have been evicted and they still refuse to move out. And this has been a big problem for everybody in this city because they come after us with their machine guns. You don't live here, I do. And they say that, well, they are on death row. That's why they don't pay their rent. They cannot pay for nothing, not even the gas and electric or their phone service because they put up the poles and wires.
Thank you, Kathy. Anybody else in the audience wishing to speak at this time? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the commission for member items. Ms. Jordan, do you have? Mr. Hartung?
Yes, I do, Mr. Chairman. As this board knows, the regional Planning Commission and Governing Board they rent space from RTC, and they're having a tough go this year. Their budget is very, very lean, as is everybody's. And I'm wondering if we can somehow, from our perspective, reduce their rates by either just giving them a better price. I mean, it's all of us, of course, and regional affects all of us, and I think that they do great work, and they do a huge amount of research for RTC now. So I'm just wondering if there's some way maybe staff can bring back to us what it would actually cost to reduce that for them, because it does affect us all, and they do a huge amount of data research for us, and so I'm wondering if we can help them in any way. That's all I have. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Any other comments? Mr. McKenzie?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It come to my attention that we've got a lot of utility conduit that there's requests for conduit for fiber optic upgrades that our utility or providers are coming in and making requests for. And I just, we're in discussions that there's certain areas that if we could pre-install that conduit based upon, as we're doing road work, that we would save wear and tear on our road systems in the long run and probably save us all money in the long run if we can include that installation. I know the Audi corridor is one area that if we pre-installed conduit in there and then we could address the way that's if they want to come in and put their fiber optics in there, how we get repayment for that in the future. So if we could sort of, between the local agencies and the utility companies, maybe come with a presentation on how we might put these conduit corridors in so that we can address this demand. It's really scary to think that we're finishing these major projects like the 4th Street Prater, which would have been another really good area to have had a conduit corridor in, and then we might be coming back and tearing a brand new road project up to put conduit in the future. If we can get ahead of that, it would be beneficial to us all.
Okay, Mr. Gibson, would you get back to him on that? Any other comments? I just have one more. I'm going to go back to the golf tournament. For next year, if somebody ever starts relying on your golf scores, you should go high as you possibly can. Shoot around 100. Okay? Hey, Adam? All right. If there are no more comments, without objection, we are adjourned. Thank you.